There is no such thing as overbought or oversold. Okay? And I really want to make sure that you fully understand that. There is no such thing as overbought or oversold. Any equity, any contract, any future can go as high as it wants to. And we've all seen stocks in the past go to zero, and we've all seen futures continue to drop and drop where you get margin calls. So they can just go as long as they want. So what does this tell us then? Well, the right way to trade tops and bottoms, as we stated, is not to try and pick a top or bottom to trade off of, but to go with it. So we want to go with them. Now, what exactly does this mean, going with them? How am I going to change my way of trading around if I'm going to be going with the tops and bottoms? Well, let's look back at our examples once again and see how we could have fared a little better trading with this different way of approaching tops and bottoms. Let's look at the example in stocks again. Let's look at Apple. All right, we have the same chart again we saw at the beginning of December. We have the overbought, oversold sightings here with the stochastic. And this is where we would have purchased and sold, and we've had a nice trade. And as we can remember here, we would have gotten back in again, and then it would have wound up disastrous. Okay? So how do we want to change our approach, and how do we want to go with these tops and bottoms? Here's what you want to do. You want to get rid of thinking about where you're going to be buying if something is overbought or oversold, and get rid of all these little areas in which to sell at the top and buy at the bottom, and plot one more indicator, one more tool, and that's the 50-period simple moving average. We call this, at Specialist Trading, we call this the buy-sell line. And it's extremely powerful, it works tremendously well, and it's so simple. But regardless of what time frame, I don't care if you're using this approach on a 5-minute chart or a monthly chart, plot a 50-period simple moving average on every chart you're trading. And then ask yourselves, where is price in relation to that 50-period simple moving average, okay? Now, as we can see here in this example of Apple, once we plotted the 50-period simple moving average, it's obvious that all the price is below. So, if price is below, this means we are only going to be going short. We're not considering buying at all. So right away, we don't even have to consider, well, where would we go long? Or where's a bottom? We're not thinking about bottoms. We're thinking about only selling if price remains below the 50-period simple moving average. So where are we going to sell then? How do we go with these tops and bottoms? Well, we look back at our oscillator, and since we're selling, all we want to be aware of are the times when the oscillator is in an oversold area, such as right here, and right here. Okay, so we have 4 areas here in the last 3 or 4 months where we were in a so-called oversold area. We were below the oversold threshold. Okay, so rather than thinking about buying, we want to look for some type of pivot or some type of bottom that was made in this oversold area. So as you can see right here, we have a low, followed by a lower low, followed by a higher low. So this was a pivot that was made in the oversold area. So this would be a low. This would be another one right here. This would be another low right here and right here. So we can mark these as these pivot lows that were only made during an oversold area. See, we have a pivot low right here, a low followed by a lower low followed by a higher low, but it was made when the oscillator was still in between the overbought and oversold. So we're not considering that. We only want to look at these extreme pivot lows. And so how are we going to trade these? Well, these are the areas. Once we come back to these levels, we are going to sell. And as you can see, you would have sold here, sold here, sold here. And I know right now that Apple, this chart was taken about a week ago. Apple is actually currently lower at the point. So you would have gotten short again. So this is another profitable trade. So you would have had 3 profitable trades here going on in Apple all the way back. Now, you don't have to take every trade. You could have gone short just one of them and just held on. But this is how you're going with the market, as opposed to try and stand in front of a downward trend and say, it's stopping and I'm going to pick a bottom here. Once again, that'll work for a short amount of time, but the times it doesn't work, you're going to literally get run over.